Hey everyone, guess who's back? It's Kamish, back here with week previews. This time it's week 5. Getting into the season here. Injuries obviously changing the landscape of the league, and you saw the matchup, so let's just get right into it. First one we got is Luke and Too Good for a Name taking on Ron and Steel Curtain. Interesting matchup in this one. Obviously Ron getting his first win ever in the LOC last week. Big win for Luke. You know, Levy and Bell returned last week. This time it's Tom Terrific, and you couldn't ask for a better matchup against my Browns. He'll probably put up about 7 touchdowns, which isn't going to look good for Ron. But Ron, you know what? Keep grinding. You're 8th in league scoring. You really deserve a better record than your 1-3, and I think you've been a good owner so far. Next one, we got Mark and LOC Commander taking on another new owner and Joshua and Cry Phoenix. You know, looking at this one, Mark, he's in that precarious position of 17th, just one position above falling down to Tier 2. So no doubt he's going to want to try to get on a winning track here. For Joshua and Cry Phoenix, just like myself, suffered your first loss of the season last week. I think the interesting one to watch in this matchup is going to be Derek Carr versus Matt Stafford. Which of the quarterbacks is going to have a huge week, and that might be the difference in this one. Next matchup, we got Danny and Arad taking on Gwevin and Monsters of the Midway. You know, for Danny, you're horrible. You're last place. You're the only winless team. I don't really see much hope for you, but who knows? The commission might be wrong. You're second to last in league scoring, so it hasn't gone your way. For Gwevin, you got to think this is a must-win for you. Big logjam there in the West Division, and I think you will get the W. Looking at it, I think Andrew Luck's going to have a big game against the Chicago Bears, and I think that'll be the difference. The next one, we got Lucas and Green Lightning taking on Ryan and Deuce Bombers. You know, for Ryan and Deuce Bombers, joined the league last year, 13-1 record. This year, 18th place right now, and would fall to Tier 2. Obviously, better start winning here soon. And for Lucas, he's going to look to avenge last year's meeting between the two teams. Lucas lost by less than 3 points in that one, and I'm sure he would love to get his revenge. And with that loss, it was part of a 5-game losing streak last year, which obviously knocked him in a bad situation. So this should be a good one for sure. Next one, we got Brandon and Chronic Master Deflator taking on George and Pack Attack. You know, looking at this, George, and again, you're awful. You're the worst in scoring in the entire league. Looking at your lineup this week too, you got some players on the bye, and because of that, I think obviously for you, Brandon, this has to be an easy win, and obviously you could show up to be competitive in that South Division. South Division could get interesting. Next up, we got 2 original owners meeting up, Milan and Toronto Turnarounds, taking on Suze and Fighting Geese. You know, they do have a history with one another. They played in 2015 last year, and they split the season. Suze lost in the regular season, then they went into the kind of the playoffs and the consolation part of the regular playoff. Susie won that one. So looking at this one too, right now it looks like Milan has no quarterback, so that's going to play a factor. A 2-2 team, you can't go into a game with no quarterback. That's going to cost you. Next up, 2 original owners again, an East Division showdown. It's Steven in US1 taking on Sean and Haha Dix. Looking at the matchup here, it looks like Sean leads the series, 2 wins, 1 loss. In 2014 they split as they met twice, and then last year Steven put up a paltry 99.88 points against Sean. Obviously Sean will be hoping that US1 does it again. For US1, big win last week. You're off the stinker for now, and you know, what are you going to go back to the stinker though? Reason being, looking at the lineup, you got to go with Fitzpatrick. He's good for 3-4 interceptions a game now, so that could cost you for sure. Next up, we got yours truly, the Commish, taking on Robert and Templars. Commish undefeated record went down last week. You know, the big thing is the injuries are starting to really catch up to the Commish's team. There's no doubt about that. These two teams have met each other before, being two original owners. Last year, Robert got the better of the commish, whereas in 2014, the commish demolished Robert by 162 points. So it should be good. I am kind of worried looking at Robert. I think Odell's going to go off on Sunday night, and it's going to be a close one, and I think it should be interesting to watch to see where these two teams end up. Next up after that, we got our stinker of the week, and it's a North Division battle. Two teams might be a surprise stinker here. Chris and True North taking on Mike and the CDC. Both sitting at 1-3, a must-win for both teams in this one. Looking at the history of the two, Chris has had Mike's number. He's 2-0 against him. Won last year handily by about 80 points, and then in 2014 by about 22 points. So looking at the matchup though, serious concern for Chris. I mean, yeah, you get Aaron Rodgers back this week, which, you know, having no quarterback last week cost you. Maybe lots of people say, well, you know, it's one game, I don't need a backup. That could cost you a playoff spot, that game last week. And then you look at it too, the bye's hurting you. I think, Chris, you could be in big trouble. You can't lose this one to Mike. If you do, it's going to be a long road back. There's no doubt about that. And then in this week's game of the week, we got Brian and the 12th man taking on Krista and Storm. Two Seahawks fans here. You know, looking at it, it looks like Krista is really going to get hurt by being a Seahawks fan. She's got a fair amount of Seahawks, which will be on the bye this week. You know, being two original owners, surprisingly, this is the first meeting between the two and the LOC. Both teams 3-1. Both teams in a good position right now. Both teams have always been pretty competitive. You know, the storyline on this one, though, obviously we go back to the heist deal. Krista somehow, the league passed this trade, I don't know how, but it was Julio Jones and somebody else, I believe, going to Brian for VJax and Josh Morgan. It was messed up. You know, Krista, I'd love to hear an explanation on why you made that trade. I don't get it, but, you know, if you look at it this year, Julio Jones, 94.40 points. He's the best wide receiver in all of fantasy. Compared to VJax, who's put up 23.30 points and isn't even on Storm's team anymore. So it was an interesting trade. It'll always go down as the heist deal, probably one of the worst deals I've ever seen in fantasy. But it obviously has propelled Brian to being a great team. You know, you add Julio Jones, the best wide receiver in all of fantasy, and then he's got AJ Green, who's actually the second best. So kind of hard to compete with that. Gave Brian a really good advantage. And you know what, Krista? Looking at it, it might cost you this week. And hopefully you'll be a little bit smarter on your decisions. I think if you had Julio Jones, we might be having a conversation that you're last year's champion. But anyways, best of luck to everyone for week 5. And we'll see you on the field.